Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming back. We have double challenge. We're the session right after lunch, and we're also the last session that is between you and enjoying the weekend or going shopping or enjoying Dubai. So hopefully it won't be too heavy for you. So the topic of my presentation is blockchain and the future of future cities. If you are based in Dubai or you visited Dubai in the last 4 years, you probably heard the term smart city a lot. Smart city and blockchain. That was pretty much the theme here in Dubai the last 4 years. But sometimes, when I engage with customers in Africa and all that, they say, the smart city is really not for us, it's for wealthy nations and all that. But that's not really the case. So first, I don't like to use the term smart city a lot. I like to use future city, because really, whenever you work on improving things in your city, you don't have a destination, really it's a journey, it's a continuous journey. But what's driving this whole thing? So let's start first, at the macro level. So we all know that the population is growing, there's a trend in urbanization, people are moving to big cities. More than 70% of the population is expected to live in big cities. You have the emergence of mega cities. And all this is putting huge pressure on the infrastructure and causing some issues with sustainability, economical sustainability, environmental sustainability, safety concerns, and all that. So what city leaders have found is that traditionally, you just go and build more roads, build more schools, more hospitals, and all that, put more cameras for safety, but that solution doesn't scale. So 21st century problems require a 21st century solution. So they say, why don't we utilize the latest innovation in technology to try to address these issues, to keep up with all these trends that we are seeing? And that's the idea of future cities or smart cities. But what are the trends? What are the latest things in technology? The initial generations of mobile, right? They were targeting one thing, which is the mobile phone, right? And just recently, we were excited about 3G. Now, for the first time, we get to do mobile broadband. We get to browse the internet. And now, we don't like 3G. If you see 3G on your phone, you hate it because it's very slow. You want 4G, LTE. And very soon, you're going to see 5G. But what is 5G? In simple words, it's now the first generation where the target end device is not your mobile phone. This is just one of the target devices. What are the other things? It could be a sensor, could be a terminal, could be a camera, could be a car, anything. So we're targeting anything there with that connectivity. So this is one trend on the infrastructure. And all this is stimulating what people are calling now Industry 4.0, which is basically the fourth industrial revolution. So this is how massive it is. People are labeling it as a new industrial revolution. The first revolutions were into like steam engine, electricity, the introduction of IT and computerization of manufacturing and all that. But now people are labeling all these changes that they are significant enough, they are triggering the fourth industrial revolution. And what we're seeing now is something called Internet 4.0. So the internet started first as internet of content, internet of information, then it became internet of people, then it became internet of things, and now people are talking about the internet of value, which was mentioned right before lunch, or the internet of transactions, which is the same thing almost. So what is the internet of transaction or internet of value? Basically, it's based on distributed ledger technology or blockchain. But even blockchain is not just one thing. It has evolved itself. And now people are talking about blockchain 4.0. So the first blockchain was designed with only one application in mind, which was Bitcoin. And then it evolved where cryptocurrency is one of many other potential applications with Ethereum, which is blockchain 2.0. And then blockchain 3.0 is by using something called distributed autonomous organization or DAO. And now people are trying to define what blockchain 4.0 should look like. One of the big concepts that is emerging now, which was introduced just a couple of weeks ago by the same inventor of Ethereum or blockchain 2.0, which is Vitalik Buterin, it's for DICO, which is basically combining the concept of distributed autonomous organization with the concept of ICO, right? But the definition for blockchain 4.0 is still murky. So all these changes are having a huge impact on everything around you, whether it's something tangible or intangible. So you go from this many things around you to now having them connected, to making them programmable and smart, and the next evolution will be making them autonomous. So things run by themselves with minimum intervention. And these disruptive technologies will remain in labs unless if they address human needs. So there has to be a need for them. They have to address a challenge, also solve a problem, or maybe generate new revenue streams based on the value that they generate. If they don't do that, then they're gonna die in labs. But if there's a need that they address, whether it's a legitimate need or illegitimate, whether it's legal or illegal, doesn't matter. There has to be a need that drives their evolution and taking them into practice. Now, if you look at putting these technologies together, so what we see basically here for future cities is the enabling infrastructure at the bottom, whether it's based on 5G or advanced fiber infrastructure, and then you have the platform, which will be the combination of the Internet of Things along with the artificial intelligence based on machine learning and the distributed ledger technology, which is kind of the broader name for blockchain, because blockchain is just one example. There could be other potential implementation, but they are all utilizing the same concept for distributed ledger technology. And then on the top for the application, you might have cryptocurrency as a potential application, you might have dApps or distributed applications or anything that utilizes smart contracts. So how big is this thing? Basically, it's big enough that there was a lot of buzz about it. This is just from last night and this morning. Updates, fresh for you, from the World Economic Forum. So the world leaders, they went from blockchain can no longer be ignored to blockchain is here to stay to participants believe in blockchain. That's how people's attitude is changing very quickly. And the first one basically was right after I left here, and the last one is this morning. Okay? So people really are changing. This is real. And this is here another parameter basically taken from Gartner, which tracks new technologies, new disruptive technologies. So it shows where blockchain is in the hype cycle. So we talked yesterday about the bubble, and they said about the need maybe for this bubble to burst, so you can have a legitimate need from it, so it can start growing. So this tracks basically the hype here in the hype cycle. So this is the peak of the hype, and then you get deflated expectations, and then you have a slope of enlightenment where you start having a plateau of productivity. So any new technology has to travel through this. So after blockchain reached the peak of the hype, now it's going towards the plateau of productivity. So it's becoming mature day after day. And this here you see the shift in funding for the VCs. So first they were just looking into Bitcoin startups, but now they're shifting towards blockchain startups. And this one here, another parameter for you. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why it's not displayed very nicely. Taken from Google Trend. So you can see over the last 10 years, obviously before artificial intelligence or machine learning, they're not new concept, they've always been there, and now they're seeing some nice increased interest in them. Same thing with Internet of Things. It has much bigger interest now, bigger slope in terms of the growth for the trends on Google. But if you look at blockchain, basically there was nothing in there, zero, and now suddenly here it's in blue, it's hitting this peak. So this first point here is when the first white paper was written about Bitcoin from an anonymous person, Satoshi Nakamoto. Could be a man, could be a woman, could be an institute, could be, you have no idea, nobody knows who it is, right? So here the paper was published, and then the first implementation for Bitcoin cryptocurrency was done. And then you have smart contract with Ethereum or blockchain 2.0, as I mentioned earlier. And then here Hyperledger for implementing blockchain in enterprise environment. And right here you start seeing this huge uptick. So it seems like we hit the hockey stick right at this point, okay? So according to McKinsey, blockchains have the potential to revolutionize the world economy. And it's not just hype and talk, it's real. And you don't have to look far to know that it's real. We are sitting here in the capital, or at least the aspired capital of blockchain in the world, right? So this is just around GITEX. So I'm not looking at all the announcements that were made over the last 4 years. This is just around GITEX. So within 2-3 months time frame, you can see Do, which is the operator here in Dubai. They announced they're going to use blockchain for health records. You can see Dubai goes blockchain to become Fintech hub, and there's a lot of collaboration between Dubai and Hong Kong and Singapore for that. Dubai airport used blockchain to create first gateless border, so it's all based on digital passport. You don't need to show your passport, you just go through a tunnel and they recognize you and all that. Very nice, very smooth process. And also to put all the government transactions through blockchain network and to eliminate the need for papers by 2021. So a lot of different announcements just here in Dubai, only, let's say, fourth quarter of last year. But blockchain has a lot of different possible implementation. Every industry can be really disrupted by blockchain. So here we focus mostly on fintech and all that, but the finance sector is only just one of many possible ones. So we talked about the government, medical records for health industry, definitely a big target, logistics, telecommunications. So every industry that can be digitized and transformed by blockchain will be transformed. But the key thing here is to make sure that there's something that differentiates, or there's a use case that will reduce the cost, or create more customer centricity, or generate new revenue stream. If you identify a potential for that in your industry, then that industry is subject for disruption. And this here, if you look at the fintech, so obviously fintech can have many different layers in there. We talked through this conference about financing, payments, currencies. All these are different layers. Each one of them can be disrupted by blockchain. And then at the underlying technology, you have the permission blockchain, if you use it in enterprise environment, which has also the requirements for security, for scalability, for throughput. So if you don't match at least what's provided today, then you're not going to be able to make it into mass deployment. So one of the limitations, for example, in Bitcoin is that it takes 10 minutes for a transaction to be verified and published and all that. And that's not good. It only can do 7 transactions per second. You compare it to Visa, Visa can process 2,000 transactions per second, right? So unless if you improve and improve and improve, or come up with a different way of doing it, for example, Ripple, they say you can do 1,000 transactions per second. So that's why you see more traction on Ripple, because this is a good advantage, very, very good performance. Obviously, it can still improve, but this is still work in progress. So it's very important to make sure that we highlight the performance of these new technologies. And then on the top, you have cryptocurrencies. And again, we have to differentiate between using cryptocurrency as a currency replacement for the fiat currency that you have, or as a token. Just like when you go to arcade, right? You have a token there, just as an easy way for you to facilitate, process. So a lot of the cryptocurrencies that are created can be utilized only as tokens, not necessarily as a replacement for fiat currencies. And then the smart contracts that you have, which were introduced with blockchain 2.0, which could represent the different financial assets. So all this can really be combined to target different applications in fintech. Fintech as an industry was kind of largely stable. It wasn't really disrupted. But now there's a lot of momentum in there because it represents a significant portion of the overall economy. So obviously it attracts a lot of people to come and attack that industry, try to make money off it, try to cause some disruption. And it's seen a huge growth year over year, so about 68% right now. And that attracts also a lot of investment from VCs, from crowdfunding and all that, to look into different ways to do things better, faster, cheaper. Now, when it comes to telecom and how we combine it with IoT, Internet of Things had a great vision, but it didn't really take off so far because there were also some concerns, mainly about securities. So for you, you might be okay if your Facebook is hacked or Hotmail is hacked or all that, but what if your digital home is hacked? What if your connected car is hacked, right? So this is a big problem, right? So that's why people were a little bit reluctant into going into mass scale and deploying the Internet of Things. But here, when you combine it with blockchain, you add that security layer into it. So now you can do identity management. You can verify all the endpoints that are connected to the network. You can try to do upgrades for the software that you have. If you need to do security patches and all that, all this can be done autonomously. You can facilitate for these endpoints to talk to each other, to communicate with each other. So there's a lot of value in combining these two technologies, blockchain and IoT. One thing also that we've been looking at is to create a marketplace for IoT. So IoT, you get a lot of information, right? Whether it's you have cameras or sensors for the weather or parking availability. And city is now talking about open data. So maybe we can try to provide this information, to the public. So the idea here is to take all this data and facilitate microtransactions. So if you're an entrepreneur and you have a smart idea that requires to get certain data from certain sensor, so maybe you can try to facilitate peer-to-peer transactions so you can process this data and utilize this data in your company based on your business model. So this one here is utilizing, again, IoT with blockchain to facilitate peer-to-peer communication and also microtransaction. Another big one, which was picked by CoinDesk. If you guys are not familiar with CoinDesk, pretty much the best hub for information and latest on blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So this one here is utilizing blockchain in health, right? So people are very, very private about their health data, and there's always a fear for how secure it will be. So here, by putting this on blockchain, you can be a lot more confident about the security of it. And this is also one of the use cases that was targeted by Dubai. And there are so many other potential use cases, like from using it in supply chain, cold chain management. If you want to look at the origin for the different materials that go into the entire manufacturing process, from the farm all the way until the product that is shipped, providing the end consumer the confidence to know the origin for everything. You can even take it a step further, and some people say that blockchain can actually resolve some old problems that humanity was not able to solve, like blood diamond, the original diamonds and all that. So there's a lot of different potential use cases that are based on the same concept, right? Another one is for the shared economy. People now don't want to buy, cars. They don't want to buy houses. For us, we grew up the old-fashioned way, right? Whenever you graduate, you get your first job, you try to save for your first house, your first car, and all that. But Generation Y, Generation Z, they don't want to own anything. They just want to pay for what they use, right? And now maybe you can facilitate this whole process through smart contracts on blockchain. So for the shared economy, or even if you want to do firmware update for the software that you have on your car. So they say a modern car has 100 sensors right now. So you have a computer inside your car, but you don't know it, right? And in the future, all these sensors will be connected to the internet, right? And you want to make sure that your software there is up to date, so there's no possibility for this car to be hacked. They say Tesla, they had 29 software updates in the last 32 months, right? So you want to do everything over the air. Not every time you want to update the software, you call the owner and ask him to come to the dealership, right? So a lot of this process can be done in an autonomous way over the blockchain. And the big one here is the digital health. And this here is actually an opportunity. It's an industry where you can combine all three technologies that I mentioned: IoT, artificial intelligence or machine learning, with blockchain. So what you do here, you have a lot of sensors that looks into the different vital signs of a patient or maybe an elderly person, whatever it is. And at the same time, you have machine learning, so you can look at the behavior of the person to detect patterns and alarm for any abnormal signs or any abnormal behavior, right? And everything is done on blockchain, so it's very, very secure and stored in a way, and you control your identity. So whenever you go and see a doctor, they don't go and talk to the other hospital to get your data and all that. You control it, you own it. You only provide information to the people who have the permission to access that information. So the key points is that blockchain is very disruptive technology. It really has the potential to be very, very transformative, to transform every single industry, including the traditional ones, the conventional ones. But there are still many challenges, some technical, some might be financials, other might be regulatory, as was covered in this conference. And all these challenges have to be resolved before it really takes off. And obviously, we at Nokia, we think that this blockchain is very, very relevant to our business, and we continue to engage with our customers to try to find suitable use cases. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.